So the next article I wanted to take a look at is entitled, Ralph Reed Said Many More White Evangelicals Would Back Trump. He was wrong. This is by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website, so let's give it a read and see what it says. In mid-October, right-wing activist and former head of the Christian Coalition, Ralph Reed, declared that Donald Trump would do astonishingly well with white evangelicals in the election. He won approximately 81% of their vote in 2016, but Reed predicted a far better showing. Remember that number. 81% of evangelicals came out and voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Generally speaking, evangelicals, when they come out and vote, they're going to vote for the person with the R next to their name. Without question. That's almost guaranteed what's going to happen. This is a quote from Ralph Reed. It says, I think the 81% of the evangelical vote that Trump received 4 years ago is the floor. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that he could end up in the mid-80s. Reed also dismissed reports of a growing number of evangelical and anti-abortion groups supporting Democrat Joe Biden and opposing Trump, such as pro-life evangelicals for Trump, Not Our Faith PAC, Christians Against Trumpism, and Political Extremism, and several others. Quote, unless they've put robust funding behind this, $25 million or more would be the minimum. They're not going to be able to move the needle, Reed said. This is back to Hemant Mehta. Well, now the election is over, we can check this. The Associated Press is now saying that while white evangelical support was certainly there for Trump, it did not significantly improve upon what he got in 2016. It stayed about the same for the diehards, while it got worse for Trump among most other groups. This is a quote. President Donald Trump won support from about 8 in 10 white evangelical Christian voters in his race for re-election, but Catholic voters split almost evenly between him and Democratic opponent Joe Biden, according to AP Votecast. About 8 in 10. It's actually 82%. The New York Times, using Edison Research, put the number around 76%. As I'm sure most of you guys know, evangelicals are steering the ship of the Republican Party. Republicans don't win elections without evangelical support. It is the biggest voting bloc in the Republican Party. That means Republicans running for office have to appeal to the evangelicals, period. If only 5 to 10% of the evangelicals turn against you, it's over for you. So it makes sense to me that Trump has done everything in his power to try to appease the evangelicals while being who he is. Which is to say, somebody who has extramarital affairs, has 16 divorces, has kids from like 15 different people. I don't understand how he's maintained the evangelical voting bloc, especially after making fun of them. It just goes to show these people will vote for anybody with an R next to their name. At any rate, he did actually lose some evangelical support, it appears. And who knows, maybe that was the voting bloc that it took to flip the election to Joe Biden. Who knows? Deservedly so. The guy is a monster and doesn't give a shit about religion. I just think it's fascinating that even 76% of evangelicals, which is the low end of the number, voted for him. How can they justify that? It's pure hypocrisy. Anyway, let's keep reading. This is Hemant Mehta speaking, but it's not the mid-80s, that's for damn sure. And while there's an ever so slight bump for white evangelicals, they represent a slightly smaller voting bloc than they did in 2016. In other words, they've gotten smaller as a group, but they've grown a bit more homogenous. The people who didn't want to be associated with them in their politics have left. Maybe Ralph Reed misjudged how many Christians would find Trump's cruelty and bigotry appealing. The good news is that among Christians who aren't MAGA cultists, Trump's support was far less enthusiastic. Quote, among white Catholics, 57% backed Trump and 42% backed Biden, according to Votecast. In 2016, Trump won 64% of white Catholics and Clinton won 31%, 42% to 31%. Biden got 42%. Clinton got 31%. That means that's a difference of 11 points in Biden's favor. Among Hispanic Catholics, Votecast shows 67% backed Biden and 32% backed Trump. Quote, the election results show that Catholic Church is as divided as our nation, but the real divide is race and ethnicity, not theology, said David Gibson, director of Fordham University's Center on Religion and Culture. This is back to Hemant Mehta speaking. Data is still coming in, but the message for the Democratic Party is becoming clear already. They must stop trying to win over white evangelicals on matters of theology or conservative politics. Be moral, be decent. Other Christians will come along for the ride and help tip the scales. Something that I didn't realize is how important every single vote is throughout this election. Just look at how many votes Biden won by. I actually wrote this down. Arizona went to Biden by a margin of 10,016 votes. Georgia went to Biden by a margin of 14,000 votes. Wisconsin went to Biden by a margin of 20,000 votes. And Nevada was a margin of 34,000 votes. One voting bloc would flip one of those states. How many atheists are there in the U.S.? They make up, 6% of the country? That's open, self-identifying atheists. 27% of the country, I think, identify as no religion. They aren't affiliated with any religion at all. Imagine what that voting bloc could do. Just the 6% voting bloc could flip any election. If we could get every atheist on board with us, we could control the direction of any election. People want you to think voting is unimportant. In reality, they want you to think that so that you don't use that power that you have.